Ladies and gentlemen, your tears were not invisible. Each drop was a silent prayer, and heaven took attendance every night. There's something sacred about the moments nobody else sees. When the lights are off, when the room is quiet, when your body is tired but your heart won't let you sleep. That's when your soul speaks the loudest, and it doesn't speak in perfect words or well-crafted sentences. It speaks in sobs, in silent shaking, in questions you don't dare say out loud. You think you're alone. You think no one sees you curled up in the corner of your own mind, battling memories that won't die and dreams that won't come back to life. But heaven saw it. Heaven counted every night. Heaven heard every word you whispered into the pillow, every moment you collapsed into yourself because you were tired of being strong. Pain is a language God understands. He doesn't need subtitles for your silence. He reads the pages you never wrote, the chapters you tried to skip over, the paragraphs that were soaked in tears. That night you cried so hard you couldn't breathe. That night you stared at the ceiling, waiting for a reason not to give up. That night you were angry at the world and didn't know if you had any more prayers left. God was there, not judging, not rushing, just holding space, just listening, just writing it all down, because he doesn't forget. He doesn't overlook what broke you, and he surely doesn't ignore what was done to you when no one else was watching. You see, your cries weren't just sounds, they were declarations. Declarations that you still cared, that something inside you still believed things could change, that there was still a part of you reaching for hope. Those weren't weak moments, those were warrior moments. Because it takes strength to feel and not go numb. It takes strength to grieve instead of grow cold. And while you may not have noticed, every tear that fell planted something. You were sowing in sorrow. You were releasing pain, releasing betrayal, releasing the disappointment that had built up for years. That pain had weight, and you carried it alone for longer than most would have survived. But God was taking note. Every night, attendance was taken in the courtroom of heaven. Roll call wasn't just for the happy and the holy. It was for the broken, the tired, the ones hanging on by a thread. And when your name was called, even if your voice didn't answer, your soul did. And that was enough. God marked you present in the pain, present in the process, present in the storm that didn't take you out. You weren't invisible in that darkness. You were observed, you were valued. You were remembered. The tears you cried didn't vanish into the air, they rose. They ascended like incense, like messages too raw for words, and God received them. You thought you were abandoned, but vengeance was loading in silence, building strength behind closed doors. You sat in that quiet room, thinking nobody cared. You scrolled through your thoughts like old photos, wondering how you ended up here. Discarded, forgotten, overlooked. But what you didn't know is that while you were breaking, heaven was building. While you were weeping, God was working. The silence wasn't absence, it was strategy. The delay wasn't denial, it was design. There's a kind of power that grows in hidden places, in the shadows, in the stillness where noise can't distract and pride has no place to hide. That's where God moves the deepest, where the wounds are too deep for words and the betrayal too sharp for comfort. You looked around and saw no justice. You saw the people who hurt you smiling, rising, succeeding. You saw the liars being believed, the manipulators being praised, the ones who broke your spirit acting like they never touched it, and it made you question everything. It made you question your faith, your worth, even your sanity. But what you couldn't see was what was happening behind the veil. What you couldn't hear was the quiet thunder rolling in the spirit realm. As God aligned the justice, you didn't even know how to pray for any more. See, God doesn't always strike fast, he strikes right. He doesn't move on your pain's timeline, he moves on purpose's timeline, because true vengeance doesn't just punish, it restores. It doesn't just return what was stolen. It redefines what you thought was possible. The silence you felt was not neglect, it was sacred. It was the sound of God collecting evidence. It was the divine pause before the shift, and the longer the silence, the greater the build. Just like a bow must be pulled back before it can launch the arrow, God was pulling you into solitude not to hurt you, but to set the stage for a release so precise, so targeted, it would rewrite every narrative spoken against you. But you had to sit in it, you had to feel the ache of being unseen, so that when God revealed his hand, you'd know it wasn't chance. It was vengeance wrapped in mercy, power wrapped in patience. Every false accusation was recorded. Every lonely night became ammunition for elevation. Every door slammed in your face made room for a gate that only heaven could open. And all the while, vengeance was maturing. Not the kind you craved in your anger, but the kind you never knew to ask for, the kind that doesn't just teach your enemies a lesson, but teaches you how deep God's love runs when it feels like no one else is showing up. It was building strength in your identity, your endurance, your discernment. Vengeance doesn't just come for the enemy. It comes to prove to you that you were never weak for surviving, never foolish for trusting, never abandoned when you felt alone. God doesn't rush justice. He prepares it, perfectly timed, perfectly placed, and unmistakably divine. We live in a world that craves immediate answers, quick results, instant reactions. But God doesn't operate on our clocks. He's not moved by panic, pressured by pain, or manipulated by noise. He works with purpose, not impulse. When you've been wronged, betrayed, mistreated, it's human to want fast payback. You want to see consequences. You want to see the scales balance overnight. But divine justice doesn't come fast. It comes full. It's not about emotional release. It's about eternal resolution. Because God doesn't just want to fix what broke you. He wants to teach the world who carried you through it. There's a reason the process takes time. Preparation in heaven looks like silence on earth. While you were praying for revenge, God was arranging redemption. While you were losing sleep over people who slept just fine after hurting you, God was aligning a revelation they won't be able to ignore. And when it comes, it won't come through your words, it'll come through your life. That's why he takes his time, because real justice doesn't need to be announced. It needs to be undeniable. And for that to happen, some things have to mature in the dark. Roots have to grow deep before fruit appears. Strength has to be forged in waiting rooms and battlefields before it can carry victory. You wanted answers, but God was building something deeper than answers. He was building evidence, evidence of his hand on your life, evidence of the grace that kept you standing, evidence that even in silence he never stopped moving. You didn't need revenge to see their downfall. You needed peace to see your rise. And peace takes time. It has to be planted. It has to be watered. It has to survive seasons of drought and nights of doubt. But when it comes, it outlasts the noise, because the justice of God isn't loud. It's lasting. Every delay wasn't denial, it was detail. Every moment of waiting wasn't wasted, it was woven into the bigger picture that you couldn't see, the version of your life that required patience, pain, and power. God knows how to make it hit different. He knows how to time the turnaround in a way that not only heals you, but humbles those who doubted you. Not to humiliate them, but to elevate the truth. Because his justice isn't petty, it's perfect. It knows how to bring light to lies, how to clear your name without you lifting a finger, how to create tables where your enemies have no choice but to watch grace serve you a future they tried to block. You thought God was late, but he was strategic. You thought he forgot, but he was orchestrating something bigger than your immediate relief. He was preparing a story, a testimony, a breakthrough that would be impossible to explain without giving him credit. The same nights that broke you will be the nights that crown you, because pain is not wasted when it's witnessed by God. There are moments in your life that felt like the end of everything. Nights when the silence was so loud it echoed through your bones. When the weight of betrayal, heartbreak, and loneliness pressed down on you like a storm with no mercy. You were curled up not just in your bed, but in your spirit, trying to hold yourself together while the pieces of your world were slipping through your fingers. And nobody knew, nobody saw, but God did. He was there, not just watching, but recording every tear, marking every moment, remembering every wound. Pain has a way of feeling pointless. It convinces you that what you're going through is for nothing, that all the crying and aching and questioning is just wasted energy. But when God is present, nothing is wasted. Every tear becomes a seed. Every sleepless night becomes a foundation. Every time you wanted to give up but didn't, you were being molded, shaped, stretched, not broken beyond repair, but prepared for more than you imagined. See, Crowns are not handed out in comfort. They're forged in fire. They're earned in the lonely places, in the private battles, in the moments when no one clapped for you, but you still chose to keep standing. You didn't survive by accident. You didn't keep going just because time moved forward. You were carried. You were shielded. Even when you didn't feel it, even when it didn't look like it, grace was working. There's a strength inside you now that wasn't there before those nights. A depth of compassion, a fire of discernment, a voice that has learned how to speak truth even when it trembles. That's the crown being formed, not the shiny kind the world recognizes, but the kind heaven honors. A crown that testifies, I made it, I didn't quit, I didn't let the darkness define me. Those who laughed at your pain will witness your rising, not for revenge, but for revelation. Because when God crowns someone, he does it in such a way that no one can deny where it came from. You don't have to explain how you healed. You don't have to justify how you made it out. The glow on your life, the peace in your eyes, the strength in your voice. That will be the evidence. The same nights you thought were breaking you were actually birthing something greater. God saw those nights not as endings, but as sacred beginnings. He wasn't punishing you. He was preparing you to wear what pain could not destroy. You will look back and realize that the darkest moments didn't steal your destiny. They revealed it. The tears didn't drown you. They baptized you into purpose. What felt like death was really transformation. You were never forgotten. You were being refined, being crowned, being made ready for a future where pain becomes power and silence becomes testimony.